Hitting record. Okay. As my voice fails. Welcome, everybody. For
Uh-oh.
those of you that have been on for a few minutes, we were just working out some technical difficulties. Uh-oh, we lost our screen again. While Tracy gets that back, I'm just going to introduce myself really quickly. I am Marnie Tichenell. I am with the Ohio State University as the Wildlife Program Director. I am joined by my partner in crime, Kathy Smith. Together, we run the Ohio Woodland Stewards Program, and we've been conducting these webinars for quite a few years now, and we tend to do them Friday mornings, at least once a month. So, um, normally I share some slides, but as we had some technical difficulties, we're just going to let one of our speakers keep their PowerPoint open. And I'm just going to run through some of the things that I normally say. If you've joined us before, then you can tune out for a couple minutes. But all of our webinars are recorded. We do post them to their website. Usually I'll get them posted by the end of today. If not, I will have it up and posted by Monday, and that would be the recording. Make sure you're checking out our website. We have quite a few workshops and classes and webinars coming up over the next month or two, and those are all on our website. Some are already open for registration, so do check those out. Um, as always, for our webinars, if you could add your questions to the question and answer box, which is usually located at the bottom of your screen. And if you have any technical issues with the webinar, then that's the type of thing you can put into the chat, and Kathy or I will address that. And you can input questions anytime throughout the webinar if something pops into your brain, and we will address those at the end of the webinar. Kathy, do we have SAF credits for today?
We do have SAF credits, no ISA
Excellent.
credits.
Yeah, no ISA credits, but we do have Society of American Forester credits. So at the end of the webinar, Kathy will put a link in the chat box, and you'll need to click that link and answer those few questions to get your credits. Okay, so today I am really excited to welcome two speakers. We have Devin Mingsburney and Tracy Cardinal joining us. Devin is the Ohio Lights Out Coordinator, and Tracy is the Dark Sky Ohio President. And they're going to be talking to us today about shared skies, how we can protect migratory birds and preserve the night skies. So thank you so much to both of you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to take it away.
Thanks for having us. Can you hear me? First
Yeah.
question. Okay,
Yes, you sound
perfect.
great.
All right. Um, as stated before, maybe some of you jumped on, I'm in the medical field, and so this is not my jam, so I apologize if we have any other technical difficulties, but we're going to go for it. So, we're going to talk about why our natural dark skies are important today. And maybe I can try to figure out how to scroll through it. Okay, hold on. This is going to be the tough part now. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, it did go to, we can see the slides on the
Presenter
right.
mode. Okay, we're going to roll with that because this is how it is on a Friday, if that's
But,
okay with you.
and the slides are a little bit blurry. I'm not sure if that's a connection thing. Um, so it's kind of difficult to read.
Oh
It's
dear.
your whole screen that's blurry, so that's why I'm wondering if it's a internet or a connection thing.
Oh, well, that could be.
It's
Um,
coming up clear on my end, Marnie. I'm
Okay,
not sure.
so maybe it's on my end. It looks good now, so
Okay.
proceed.
yeah, I couldn't scroll through with the presenter mode, unfortunately.
You know what? Let's just roll with this and
Okay. Oh my gosh. We'll figure this out for next time. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
you're good.
I've lived in Ohio for about 14 years. Again, I'm a physician associate. I work in orthopedic spine surgery. I'm a mom of two young girls, and we love the outdoors. So we love hiking, biking, stargazing, and we have become very passionate advocates for the night. I am currently the president of Dark Sky Ohio. So Dark Sky Ohio is an advocacy group, volunteer-led, and we promote responsible use of outdoor lighting, and we raise awareness about light pollution and its impacts on wildlife, human health, and astronomy. So to begin, I want you all to just take a minute and think about what an ideal night sky would look like. So maybe from your childhood, maybe from a trip you took. I think we all may have an idea of what that would look like. And it may be a moonrise over a lake or a meteor or maybe even the Milky Way. But unfortunately, the night sky has changed slowly over time for all of us. I'm going to attempt to try a video, and I don't know if this is going to work. So we're just going to see. You all see a video?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We live on the surface of a planet, spinning on its axis once every 24 hours. Its rhythms of day and night are embedded in the biological makeup of all life. During the day, we bathe in the glow of the sun. As night approaches, darkness takes over. It's a time to rest, to rejuvenate, to marvel at the beauty of the night. Until just over a century ago, our night skies were very dark. Now, even the wilderness is invaded by light. Our cities glow at night. Buildings are lit up. Unshielded lights blind us as we travel along our streets and roads. All these artificial lights overpower the darkness. The waste of energy is obvious, even from space. Much of that yellow glare the astronauts see comes from streetlights. They produce most of the light pollution on the planet. The glare is scattered by the atmosphere, creating sky glows over the landscape. We are losing the dark of night at the speed of light. Light pollution threatens the health of every living thing on Earth. Lights at night disrupt plant growth. Unshielded lights contribute to the deaths of countless land and sea animals each year. Migrating birds crash into illuminated buildings. Newly hatched sea turtles mistake the glow of electric lights for the shimmer of the ocean's surface. Bright lights at night also directly affect humans. Drivers and pedestrians temporarily blinded by poorly designed lights have suffered tragic accidents. Light pollution poses a silent threat to our health. Exposure to light at night disrupts the circadian rhythms that regulate our sleep cycles. People working at night under bright lights or living in light-polluted cities face a higher risk of developing diseases such as breast and prostate cancer. Here is a night sky with typical light pollution. On a good night, only the brighter stars and planets pierce the glow. This is what the night sky might look like if we could remove the light pollution. That faint band of light stretching across the sky is the Milky Way, our home galaxy. Because of light pollution, many people have never seen it. Astronomers know all too well the problems caused by lighting up the night. They need clear, dark skies to study the many fascinating objects in the universe. Light pollution simply washes out their view of the cosmos. Lighting up the night sky wastes money and fossil fuels. To keep a 100-watt light bulb turned on every night for a year takes the equivalent energy output from burning half a ton of coal. Multiplied by the billions of lights blazing up from Earth, the cost of energy we use to light up the night is colossal. While lighting is needed, there are some simple things we can do to ensure that it's neighborhood-friendly, energy-efficient, and helps preserve dark skies. We can replace light fixtures that send light up to the sky with ones that direct light down, exactly where we want it. They're called fully shielded fixtures. We can also illuminate only the places that need it. And of course, we can just turn off unnecessary lights. These are smart ways to use lighting. They offer simple solutions to problems caused by light pollution. We have a choice between wasting resources by sending light to the sky or learning to use light more responsibly. Light pollution is a problem each of us can help solve. Together, we can bring back the dark of night to planet Earth.
I think that's a great little video. So I think it's a super helpful learning tool. So that's why I wanted to share it with everyone today, because it's 12 years old, but I think it still works for what we're working on. And this is a problem here in Ohio. So when we talk about what is light pollution, it is a change in the outdoor lighting that is made by man that is inefficient and excessive. Light pollution, we talk about different terminology. So some of the terms that we use would be sky glow. So that's when you have an increase in the apparent brightness of the sky. Sometimes you can see a dome of light. So we call those light domes. Light trespass is the next thing, which is when the light actually escapes where it's supposed to be, which is directed down where we need it. And it escapes into our property or into our homes and into our bedrooms. Glare is the other issue with unshielded and misused light, is that it temporarily blinds us and it dazzles our eyes, so we can't see around shadows and we can't see around corners. So this is all unintended effects of using too much light or misused light at night. Light pollution actually harms our health. So again, in that video, I kind of touched on it a little bit. Since that time, since 12 years ago when that video initially came out, we have learned so much about why we actually need a normal light and dark cycle. So for millions of years, humans have evolved with a natural light and dark cycle. Our bodies perform different functions during the day and at night based on that light, and that is called our circadian rhythm. Because we have altered that, our bodies have responded. So we're not producing the hormones like we normally do during the day and at night because we have lights on all the time. And every year we learn more and more of the consequences of that. So this here on this left side kind of shows all the different disorders that we found that are associated with excessive use of light at night. So sleep disorders, obesity, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, and even hormonal driven cancers. This happens because of that irregulated and dysregulated light cycle. So the specific hormone that controls all this is called melatonin, and it's an antioxidant or an anti-oncogenic, which is anti-cancer, and it turns on our immune cells at night. So at night we rest, it's dark, melatonin gets turned on, and then it fights all those different things. If it is If there is not enough darkness or too much light, then there's less melatonin that gets produced. And then that can lead to disorders that we saw on the slide before. So again, it can lead to negative health outcomes for humans if we have too much light on at night. There is a specific cell in our eyes that turns on that hormone. So that photoreceptor in our eye turns on the melatonin when it gets dark. So when it doesn't sense bright light from the sun or bright light from our lights, then it turns on that melatonin. So it is our health is directly related to the light during the day and then the darkness at night. Again, I'm not going to bore you with this slide. This is just all the different sciences and different studies that have come out recently that show that there's an increased risk of all these health consequences in areas that have excessive light pollution. So humans need darkness. We're going to find out later that all living things need darkness. This slide here kind of shows us how humans live these days. So we have lights on all the time that shine into our window, and obviously that can lead to a lot of consequences for us. Lighting, if we change our lighting and reduce how much light we use and make it more efficient, it's going to save us money. And again, in that video, it showed us that over time, if we use less light and use efficient light that is directed down, we're going to save money. So it's just easy on your pocketbook. The other thing that we talk about in dark sky is we can use dimmers and timers. So again, if you know that you're going to be home at a certain time, you can have that light to be turned on. Motion sensors are really good for if you just need to walk outside, the light turns on and then it goes off when you go back inside. The other thing that we advocate for is the use of warm color temperatures versus brighter color temperatures. So again, those bright white LEDs are what prevents that melatonin from being turned on. So we advocate for more yellow light at night or more warmer color temperatures at night. There's also evidence that nocturnal animals respond better to warmer color temperatures than the bright white light. This is an image of unshielded bright glaring light on the left and then downward directed light on the right. So I think the choice is obvious here which one we should be using. What about safety? So a lot of folks are concerned about safety, and the lore is that if we turn on our lights at night, then no one's going to break into our house. That's actually not the case. Most break-ins happen during the day when we're at work. If we use too much light at night, it can actually make us less safe. I'm going to attempt to show this video here.
Bright, unshielded security lights don't provide much security. They blind us and cast sharp, dark shadows where anything can hide. Security lights that are less bright, more yellow in color, and shielded are better. Oh look, there's a Sasquatch. The light is safer. We can see into the shadows because the glare is gone.
Here is an image of a light that is turned on at night, so it is unshielded. Unfortunately, there's someone hiding in the shadows there. So when we shield the light, we can see the person that's creeping into your backyard. So again, when that light is unshielded, we can't see beyond the shadows because of how our eyes respond to that light. So when we shield the light, it's directed downward and it's actually safer for us as well. Nocturnal animals, again, going back to the circadian rhythms and how we need the natural light and dark cycles. So nocturnal animals are active at night and they have evolved to hunt and mate during the darkness. And when we have our lights on all night, that changes their behavior and reduces their habitat. So moths pollinate in the dark. They're one of our best pollinators. Salamanders migrate at night. lightning bugs mate and talk to each other at night using their lights. If our lights are on too bright, then that's obviously going to be bad for their ecosystem and our environment. The night is an unexplored ecosystem. So there are glowing fungus and brand new species of lightning bugs that we found in Ohio just because people are looking for them. So if you have your lights on and you're not exploring the dark, you're not going to see that glowing fungus. You're not going to find that brand new species of lightning bug. So my family, one of the fun things we like to do is just turn off all the lights and explore the darkness. And wouldn't it be great to find a new species of glowing fungus in your own backyard or a new species of lightning bug? So I think this is great for, again, all of us outdoor enthusiasts, that this is an unexplored environment. And what could we find if we just turned off our lights and embraced the dark? The final thing that we're going to kind of discuss is our history in the sky, so our history of the stars. So astronomers have been studying the sky for a millennium. 7,000 years ago, early humans in the African plains mapped the movement of the stars. Cultures from around the world and throughout history have looked to the sky for inspiration, understanding, and awe. Our dark sky has changed little over thousands of years. This links us to our past, our present, and our future. I often worry what our human heritage and connection will lose if we erase the night sky. So again, I think we can all think of times that we sat in front of a campfire and looked up and found meaning in seeing what is out there. This is a couple of images that I took maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago in the state up north where I'm originally from, which is Michigan. We were in a more rural area and we were able to see the Milky Way. And these images were just taken with my camera phone, my iPhone. And this is here in Ohio. It's right above us at night. We just can't see it in most places, unfortunately, because of our misuse of light at night. This is an image taken from a volunteer that he took this kind of south of Springfield in Clark County. You can see the light dome or the sky glow kind of underneath this. And again, this is here in Ohio. We have it here. We have a great resource in the night sky. More people just need to be aware of it. This is an image I took out my daughter's windows several years ago. She couldn't sleep because of the light. She woke me up and said, Mom, I can't sleep because of this light. And so I looked outside and this is what I saw. Well, I looked out her window and there is an industrial facility that's maybe a half a mile from our house, and they have their lights on all night because they work at night. So it really frustrated me. And during the pandemic, when all of us didn't have much to do, I decided that I was going to do something about it. So I contacted Clark County here in Springfield, and I said, is there any kind of law or anything that we can do to help prevent this excessive light coming from this facility? And we got together, and over a couple of years, we were actually able to pass a light ordinance. So this light ordinance basically says that all new buildings and housing units have to have fully shielded lights, so lights that are directed down. So my hope is that sometime in the future, our lights are going to be significantly better in Clark County. It's going to be better for our health, the health of our citizens, and better for our environment. This is a map of light pollution currently in Ohio. So I think if you take a look at this, you can see where you live. The white epicenters of these big cities are areas of concentrated light pollution. It goes from that hot white light all the way to red, to orange, to yellow. The green aqua color is where there's not as much light pollution. So there's not many places in Ohio that are, that don't have some form of light pollution. Light pollution, it grows by 10% each year. So statistics show that If we don't do something about it now, my grandkids won't be able to see the stars. Some of the things we can do about it is just use more responsible light at night. So we promote shielding, warmer color temperatures, lower intensity, and timing. Again, turn off the lights if it's not needed. I tell my daughters all the time, hey, if you're brushing your teeth and you're using the water, when you're done, turn it off. It doesn't need to run all day long. And this is the same with light at night. We don't need to have our lights on all night if they're not in use. Again, we can advocate for smart and sustainable lighting in our own homes. That includes inside your home, outside your home, and in your neighborhood. And if you want to move beyond that, you can definitely take action in your own community by talking to your local government. This is the fun part. So this or that. If we look at these two images, which light is the better use of light at night? So the one here on the left is down directed. It's warmer color and temperature. So we would want to use this kind of light at night. The one on the right is unshielded and glaring. The people that live across from this housing unit here are probably getting some light trespass. This or that. So which wall pack would we choose? So these images both come from the Springfield area, and the one on the left is wall packs that are on a car wash and they're unshielded. They're kind of shining up in the sky. And that facility isn't even running. Like there's no one even washing their car at 10 o'clock at night. The one on the right is a wall pack from a storage facility that is down directed in Clark County. So thank you to the commissioners. They passed our light pollution ordinance, and there is a significant difference when driving past these two facilities, the down directed light compared to the glare and unshielded light. Again, this or that, if you're driving on a rural county road, which light is preferable? So the one on the left, we can see the stars above it. The light is directed down where it's intended. It's not too harsh of a difference between the dark and the light. So you could see maybe an animal running past. You can see to get to your driveway if that's where you need to turn. The image on the right there is there's lots of glare. It may even be hard to see an animal that darts out from underneath that light. So again, it's even dangerous to have too much light on at night. This is an image of just a home that had their lights on all night compared to turning them off. So if we look at a neighborhood, which would be better for pollinators? What's going to be better for fireflies? What's going to be better for birds? It's going to be the house on the left, or incorrect. The house on the right is going to be better for our pollinators and better for our nighttime environment because they turn the lights off. So this is going to wrap up my portion of it. We are Dark Sky Ohio. This is our email if you want to get a hold of us. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We're working on our website. Again, we are just kind of a small little ragtag group, but we would welcome any sort of help that you all want to give us. And if you want to join us, we would welcome you. So that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen here, so bear with me just for a second. All right, and you guys see my screen and hear me okay?
Looks great.
Awesome. All right. Again, thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing about Dark Sky Ohio. It sounds like you're doing some really important work and to keep our skies dark at night. And thanks, Marnie, for kind of bringing us together and organizing this webinar. We definitely have a lot of overlapping goals between Dark Sky Ohio and Ohio Lights Out, so it definitely makes sense for us to present together today. So first of all, my name is Devin Mingus-Bruni, and I'm the Ohio Lights Out coordinator with the Ohio Bird Conservation Initiative. And I'm based here at The Ohio State University. So today I'll be talking a little bit about what the Ohio Lights Out program is, what our goals are, and just the different ways that you can get involved. Okay, so fall is one of my favorite times of year. It used to be spring, but it's definitely shifted to fall these days. And no, it's not because of pumpkin spice, but I really love the cooler temperatures, the changing of the leaves to yellows and reds and oranges. But most of all, I love that fall is migration season. And beginning in late July and continuing through mid to end of November, we have millions of birds that are on the move. So many species travel from their breeding grounds in boreal Canada, and they go to their wintering grounds in Central and South America. And some of these journeys are absolutely incredible. For example, that tiny little blackpoll warbler that's up in the upper right-hand screen um, weighs only about 12 grams, and it has been recorded flying from Canada in its breeding grounds to South America in just about 3 days' time. And this abundance map that you see over here that's kind of moving, this is from eBird, and it is representing the movement of Tennessee warbler, which is one of our more common transient migrants. And it just shows one example of how birds are moving across our landscape. And here in Ohio, we've recorded over 400 different bird species, but many of them are migratory, meaning they're not here with us year round. And migration isn't really limited to these narrow pathways. We often refer to, flyways, like Ohio's in the Mississippi Flyway. They're more of geographic categories when we talk about flyways. But in reality, migration is diffuse across our landscape, and each species follows its own timing. Some move over just a matter of days, like the blackpoll warbler that I talked about in the fall, and others can move over weeks or even months, and they're not confined to these rigid routes. So this graphic is a good demonstration. It just shows kind of how broad and varied these movements really are. So what is the Ohio Lights Out program? Generally speaking, it is a really large collaborative effort that aims to make urban areas safer for migratory birds. And on this map of Ohio over here, you can see the regions of Ohio where Lights Out programs are active. Each city, region, campus program might participate in different ways, but they all share the same goal, which is protecting birds. And so in addition to the major city programs that we kind of have listed over here, there are active collision monitoring programs, and I'll explain a little bit about what those are in a few slides, but we have some in Lorain County Community College, Ohio University in Athens, University of Cincinnati, and then right here at Ohio State, we have the Lights Out Buckeyes group. And why do we need conservation programs like this? This is because many bird species are in serious decline. Birds are bioindicators of a healthy ecosystem. And there was a landmark study done in 2019 that found that since the 1970s, we've lost nearly 3 billion breeding birds across the US and Canada. And that includes declines across multiple groups like migratory species, grassland birds, boreal forest birds, and eastern forest birds. But the one thing that I do like about this study, despite how sad it is, there was one group of birds that showed an actual increase in their population. And so that was waterfowl. So thanks to focused conservation efforts such as habitat restoration and adaptive harvest management, it suggests that conservation efforts can potentially help to slow down or even reverse these population declines in other avian groups. And birds face many different threats, including habitat loss and degradation, exposure to pesticides or other pollutants, climate change, and invasive species like free-roaming cats. Today, however, we're just going to focus on two of those threats in urban areas, and we're going to look at light pollution and reflective glass and how they contribute to bird window collisions. And so this photo over here on the right was taken in downtown Columbus, and it shows a common yellowthroat, so one of our migratory songbirds, and it collided with a window, which was a direct result of the reflective glass and potentially even this light pollution. And so we're going to start with the first major threat, which is light pollution. Tracy has already given us some great background, but we'll expand a little bit on how artificial light affects birds and other wildlife as well. And so artificial light at night not only obscures our views of the stars, but it can also alter our environment. This was a photo that I took, and it was 10,000 feet above sea level atop Mauna Kea in Hawaii. And I was in my late 20s before I was ever able to see the Milky Way. So this was the first time that I got to witness this. Luckily, Hawaii is one of those places where you have a lot of opportunities to see the stars. They have pretty minimal light pollution compared to the rest of the United States. And in this photo, you can see very little light pollution. You can see just a little bit off to the left over there, that like yellowy sky glow, and then the car headlights as well. That deep red glow that you can see right there in the middle is actually a lava field. That was in 2019 or 2018, excuse me, when Kilauea was erupting, which I thought was kind of cool to capture. But here in Ohio, we don't really have the opportunity to see the Milky Way or many stars. And in fact, by 2016, the Milky Way was no longer visible to over 1/3 of the population worldwide. And so this slide here is just illustrating how dramatically our nightscape has changed with this ever increasing amount of urbanization. And this was a predictive model, and it was published in 2003, but it estimated the amount of light pollution growth since the 1950s. And it's pretty close to what you would see today on global light pollution maps. So if you do a quick Google search, you're going to find probably dozens, if not hundreds, of articles on the effects of artificial light and wildlife, humans included in that. There's an overwhelming body of research on the ecological impacts of artificial light at night. And these studies show effects not only on birds, but across plants, amphibians, reptiles, insects, fish, mammals, and humans. Some of those commonly observed impacts include the disrupted circadian rhythms, like Tracy was talking about, those hormonal imbalances, disrupted navigation and orientation, and potentially altered reproduction or survival. So just for an example, there was one study that was looking at the effect of artificial light at night on plant phenology. And it found that it advanced spring bud burst time and delayed fall leaf color change. And this was, I think, maybe by like 7 or 8 days on either end. There was also an experimental study that looked at the effects of artificial light at night on plant and pollinator relationships. And they set up 2 different meadows, and one was naturally dark and the other one was artificially illuminated with lights. They found a 62% decrease in nocturnal pollinator visits to the brightly lit meadows compared to the dark ones, which inevitably led to a decrease in fruit set on their study plant. And there are probably dozens of articles at a minimum showing how hatchling sea turtles are drawn to artificial lights instead of the moon. So in other words, light pollution doesn't just affect individual organisms, it can have cascading effects on entire ecosystems. And there are new studies coming out every day on the effects of light pollution on wildlife. There is a new paper just published last month, and researchers researchers were using a global acoustic data set of more than 60 million detections, which represented about 583 diurnal bird species. So they were looking at the effects of light pollution on avian vocalization. And the audio was collected by thousands of devices installed in backyards and other locations. This was mostly by bird watchers and other wildlife enthusiasts. And it was part of a program called Bird Weather. So this is fairly new, but these are pretty cool devices that you can put in your backyard. And on average, light pollution prolonged vocal activity by up to almost an hour, so about 50 minutes on average. And light pollution was strongest, those responses were strongest for species with larger eyes, open nests, migratory habits, and large ranges during the breeding season. And all of this to say that light pollution has wide-ranging and measurable impacts on wildlife, which is why reducing that light pollution is so important. And so why do we focus so much on light pollution during migration? Bird migration has evolved over thousands of years, and birds use a variety of cues for navigation. Of those 400 plus bird species that I talked about in Ohio, a majority of them are migratory, and most of those migrate at night. Most of our songbirds are nocturnal migrants, and astronomical cues such as the moon and stars are important for their navigation, getting them from their breeding and overwintering grounds and back again. And so, in my opinion, one of the coolest things about migration is that these really large events can be picked up on radar, just like our weather. And this image over here shows what migrating birds look like as they take off at night. Some people can describe them as donuts. So you might hear birders talking about donuts. And radar doesn't just pick up birds, it also picks up bats and even these large groups of insects, showing just how massive and complex these movements really are. And so if you haven't checked out Birdcast yet, this is a pretty cool website, especially right now during migration. This is a website that uses a combination of weather data from NexRad. It uses weather forecasts and historical bird movement data. And it creates these migration forecast maps that are able to roughly predict about how many birds are projected to migrate through on any given night during migration. So if you haven't had a chance, check it out. You can even sign up for migration alerts, depending on what area you're in. And it's just a great reminder to turn off unnecessary lights, especially on those really, really busy nights where a lot of birds are moving through. And this is current. I did take a snapshot of this one this morning. So tonight looks, medium-ish as far as, migration goes. So. And when it comes to birds, light pollution doesn't just obscure the stars. It can actually actively disorient them as well. Migratory songbirds can become trapped circling in these bright lights, which unfortunately they're expending this critical energy that they need for migratory movements, and it makes them more vulnerable to predators. And it also increases their chance of fatal collisions with buildings. So one of the more powerful examples of this is the tribute in light. If any of you have visited, these are these high intensity light beams that are kind of representing those twin towers. And researchers did a study over a 7-year period, and they found that over 1 million birds were affected by these beams. Fortunately, though, local bird monitors now work with those light operators, and they temporarily will shut down the beams whenever there are too many birds caught in them. So they shut these lights down for about 20-minute periods at a time when they count a certain number of birds entrapped in those lights. And the sad reality is that nearly 1 billion birds are lost to building collisions each year in the United States alone. And at this point, it's likely a conservative estimate. Recent studies examining the survivability of rehabilitated window strike birds found that about 60% of them didn't survive even in the best and most experienced care. So this is putting that estimate at this point well over $1 billion per year in the US. And many of these species are ones that people rarely get to see up close. For birders, we're kind of looking with binoculars deep in the woods for these tiny little passerines that we might get a chance to see. But sometimes for many, the only time they might encounter them if they're not birders is when they're finding them injured or dead near a building in downtown areas. And I like to think of this as a two-part story between light and glass, and how these two factors interact at different scales to impact the rates of bird building collisions. And so light functions more at the landscape scale. It's altering migratory behavior and drawing birds into brightly lit urban areas where they might, potentially want to go to more resource heavy areas adjacent to these urban centers. Um, and so glass functions more at the local or site level scale, and is the direct cause of window collisions. And these are just generalizations. There have been plenty of papers looking at, site level influences of light on collision rates, but just as a general rule, these two inputs operate at different spatial scales. And the cumulative effects of artificial light at night on migratory birds has been demonstrated to be substantial. It can exacerbate the issues associated with reduced habitat quality and food availability, as well as increased rates of predation. And I'll pose this question to you. You don't have to answer, but just think about your answer in your head. How many of you have run into glass before? This might elicit a funny memory, maybe slightly painful or embarrassing one, but much like humans, birds don't see glass. Humans, however, can take in other cues to tell us that glass is a solid surface, but birds typically will see an extension of their own environment. Just like the photo over here on the left, you can see the trees and the sky reflected in the glass. And that photo in the middle is a building from downtown Columbus, and it is an atrium that has a lot of plants on the other side of that glass. And on the right-hand side is a glass railing, and it is what we call fly-through glass, so it's nearly invisible. And birds see these features and they try to fly into or through them to what they think may be safety or refuge. But buildings, walkways, railings, bus stations, basically any type of human-made structure that has glass or some kind of reflective surface poses a threat to migratory birds. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, with using a lot of glass in modern day architecture, lets in a lot of really nice light, ambient light. But these new innovations and technologies are making it much easier to implement these larger areas of uninterrupted glass. And we're starting to see it everywhere in new construction and building renovations. And so Ohio Lights Out makes urban areas safer for migratory birds through a variety of different ways. We work with building managers, business owners, property owners to enroll in our light reduction program and reduce their overall light emittance during spring and fall migration seasons. We also try to work with them to treat some of their problematic glass facades to make them more bird friendly as well. We work and engage with local governments to make similar changes in urban areas, and many of our regional programs have volunteers that are collecting dead and injured birds. So these are those collision monitoring programs. Volunteers are waking up really early, going around city areas, and they're picking up all those dead and injured birds that they find on these routes. And so these studies may also help us answer questions about how collisions impact behavior, survival, or reproduction after rehabilitation. And Ohio Lights Out began in Cleveland in 2017 with a small dedicated group collecting any of those injured or dead birds that they found downtown. And Lights Out Cleveland is still it's now one of our largest collision monitoring programs in the state. And since it began, volunteers have collected over 20,000 dead and injured birds. So these incredible volunteers walk designated routes in downtown Cleveland during spring and fall migration to collect any birds that have struck windows. And not only have they saved countless numbers of injured birds, but the data they collect is vital to the program, and it has led to many major successes treating buildings in downtown Cleveland to make them more bird friendly. And these numbers tell us more about the factors affecting building collisions as well. We can begin to further understand building characteristics such as height, percent of glass on facades, and how that interacts with window collisions, and how vegetation characteristics affect window collisions as well. So I've talked a lot about the threats, and now I think it's time to shift toward the solutions. So how can we design our urban spaces to be safer for migratory birds? I'm not going to go into much detail on this slide here, since Tracy already covered a lot of different ways that we can reduce light pollution to help wildlife, but these two illustrations here depict that. We can use wildlife-friendly lighting structures, such as shielded lighting that helps us direct that light downwards, only where it is needed. And we can eliminate decorative lighting. We can also close curtains, eliminate uplighting, install motion sense lighting, and use those warmer tones to reduce the overall amount of artificial light on the landscape. And so reduced lighting also comes with the added benefit of decreased energy costs, and a lot of our property managers like that idea as well. And this here is just an example of what light reduction looks like in practice. This is the Chicago skyline before and after lights out measures. You can notice how much the unnecessary lighting and sky glow have been reduced. And it doesn't mean that you have to turn all the lights off, but we're minimizing them during migration, and that can make a huge difference. We can also design buildings to reduce or eliminate window collisions from the start, and you can get as creative here as you want. I had the privilege of visiting Tracy Aviary in Salt Lake City this summer when I was there for an ornithology conference. And these are the photos that I took of the bird-friendly designs they have. So Tracy Aviary wanted to create something that would complement the surrounding environment, but still be bird-friendly. So the architect for this particular structure went with a biophilic design that mimicked the angles of the surrounding trees. And this does a great job of still allowing in a lot of that natural light that they were seeking, but it provides bird-safe elements to also keep those birds from colliding with the structures. And here in Ohio, we've made a lot of progress. Many property owners have pledged to reduce lighting, and others have treated their glass on the buildings as well. Cleveland in particular has led the way with multiple mitigation projects downtown. And as a result of our Lights Out advocacy, bird safe building practices are gaining momentum statewide. And several major mitigation projects were completed over the past year, which is really exciting. Aside from the projects that you see over here in these photos, other projects completed this year were the STEM Center of Excellence up in Akron, Rocket Arena in Cleveland, which was huge. There's the old chem building at University of Cincinnati, and Great Council State Park building in Dayton included bird safe glass in their construction, as well as several exhibits at the Columbus Zoo Aquarium. So they just opened up their new renovation for North America, and so they have a lot of the bird collision deterrence up there on those exhibits as well. And so Rocket Arena, this was one of the larger projects that was completed, and it finished up last fall. And so on this, if you can see in the photo with the cherry picker, They are actually applying decals in this photo. You can't really see them. It's a product called Bird Divert, which is a UV absorbing and UV reflecting dot system. And humans have difficulty seeing these dots. I mean, you have to get very close just to notice that there's something on those windows. They are transparent, but many bird species can see in ultraviolet light. And so this was kind of it was a solution. This kind of solution is especially valuable for places or property managers that are worried about aesthetics and where that might be a barrier to adopting more traditional opaque treatments. So you can kind of see this GIF over here on the right, what it looks like to the human visual spectrum as opposed to what birds might see when they're flying close to this glass. And I will say that this product is great. It's not for every window that you come across. It has to have an ample amount of light. So places that kind of have like overhangs and things like that, it might not be the best solution for that window. And so you can help at home. And this is what we're going to talk about for the rest of this. This isn't just an issue for skyscrapers or for buildings located in downtown areas. Many of these collisions happen in residential areas as well. This bird here in the photo, this was taken in my house. It's a male rose-breasted grosbeak, and he struck the window at my house, and you can see that offending window just directly behind this bird. Luckily for this guy, I was already a lights out volunteer at the time, and I knew exactly what to do to help it. So I was able to capture it and take it to Ohio Wildlife Center, which is our local wildlife rehabber, where it recovered from a broken wing and continued on to its migratory journey. But just as a note, the broken wing was not very apparent at first. This bird was actually able to fly away with that injury. So that's why it's important if you ever come across any injured birds that you find that have, collided with windows, it's best to get those guys to a licensed rehabber just so that they can check out the bird, assess any injuries that might not be apparent to you. And this experience just reminded me that everybody can, go through this kind of experience. I'm sure a lot of you have probably had birds hit windows at home as well. So it's important to treat some of those residential windows as well. And so where do a majority of these collisions occur? There was a study in 2014 that found that most collisions actually don't occur at those high rises like we might think. In fact, less than 1% of those total collisions occur at high rises. The majority of them, however, are occurring at residential and low-rise buildings. And this is accounting for about 99% of them. So what can homeowners do? One simple step is applying decals or markers to windows to break up those reflections. And a few best practices can make these solutions the most effective. So here, contrast is key. You want to choose marker colors that contrast with the environment and stand out on those window panes. So I've just kind of put a couple examples here on this slide, but the higher contrast dots are the ones that you're going to want to choose for your window to be the most effective. And you kind of have to consider how lighting changes throughout the day. These windows, like typically those white markers are going to work well for many of the windows that you have at home. And black markers or darker markers are going to be used for the fly-through glass, like that glass railing that we saw in a few slides prior. And spacing decals is also crucial. I'm sure some of you have seen those single decals that people have put up. Those aren't very effective. So birds will attempt to fly through those gaps. And I'll just put that there. They need to be pretty densely spaced. So you want to eliminate any of those openings that birds might perceive as a safe flight path. And we used to recommend a 2x4-inch spacing pattern, and you can still use this. This is probably a minimum spacing pattern, but we now are suggesting more of the 2x2. So no more than 2 inches vertical by 2 inches horizontal apart. And the other thing to keep in mind with this is that markers should always be placed on the outside surface of the glass to break up those reflections. If you're putting these decals on the inside, it may not do the job that you're anticipating it to do, and you might still see some of those collisions occur. So put them on the outside of the glass and make sure that they're pretty tightly spaced. I like to include these photos because it's a little bit creative. Collisions aren't limited to windows. Any clear or reflective surface can be hazardous. We were at a tabling event and a homeowner came up to us and she told us that she had discovered a bunch of dead birds, around her basketball hoop and she couldn't figure it out. But then she thought about it and she applied these markers to it and the collisions stopped immediately. So just a reminder that even some of the most unexpected surfaces can pose risks. And you really aren't limited to the types of products that you can use to prevent window collisions either. So pictured over here on the left is an example of paracord. And it's this, the really nice thing about this solution is that you can space it a little bit wider. So these are recommended to be spaced at 4 inches apart. So you can kind of get a little bit better viewing from your window if you use these as well. These paracords, they create shadows on the window, and if you leave them unattached at the bottom, it can create some movement as well. So you can get these from Acopian Bird Savers, but it's also really easy to make these yourself, and it's a pretty simple solution as well. Window screens are another thing that helps prevent collisions. And if you're not interested in permanent solutions, you can use things like tempera paint. So I don't know if you've ever used tempera paint to like mark car windows, things like that. You can also use a bar of soap to etch marks into your window during spring and fall migration seasons, and then just wash them off, outside of that. And if none of these solutions are appealing, you can also look at American Bird Conservancy's website. They have a whole product database that you can find different products on that will suit your needs. And there are a couple other ways that you can also reduce collisions at home. One of these things is to keep plants off of your windowsill. So it kind of gives the illusion that there's some type of habitat on the other side. So removing these plants from your windowsill will help birds see that this is not really a space that they want to go. And then also with bird feeders. So I get this question a lot. With bird feeders, they need to be either really close to your house, so within 3 feet. It doesn't allow them to get that, fatal velocity that they can if they're otherwise. And so you can also place them well over 30 feet away, try to keep that out of line with any direct windows. And so I focus a lot on the windows and lights, but there are a lot of other ways that you can help birds at home as well. Many of you have probably seen this. This is the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and it's the 7 simple actions that you can take to help birds. So one of those things like using less plastic, which reduces pollution, prevents plastic waste from harming birds through either ingestion or entanglement. Keeping those cats inside. I have 2 cats myself, and they are strictly indoors. This is one of the leading causes of bird deaths, even above window collisions. So these guys kill a lot more. Use native plants. This provides food, shelter, and breeding habitat for birds and the insects that they depend on. Similarly, avoiding pesticides, that protects those insects that are critical food sources for birds. And then if you are coffee lovers like myself, drink shade-grown coffee. There are a lot of different options out there these days for shade-grown coffee. This will protect those tropical forests where many of our migratory birds are overwintering. And of course, I have to put this plug in. We always need more volunteers for our collision monitoring teams across the state. Collision monitoring is underway for fall migration, and programs across the state are always looking for new participants. So if you are interested, if this sounds appealing to you, you can reach out through our website. My contact information is on there, and I can connect you with a program that might be close to your area. I always love to bring this slide up just because this is a small snapshot of all the organizations that collectively make Ohio Lights Out the program that it is today. It wouldn't be possible without our network of over 120 partner organizations. And this includes wildlife agencies, metro parks, museums, rehab centers, businesses, and those countless volunteers all working together to make urban spaces safer for migratory birds. And finally, I wanted to share a collaboration that Tracy and I worked on between Dark Sky Ohio and Ohio Lights Out. So this is an awareness day that Tracy's going to put on September 27th. And of course, just a reminder, migration does not happen in a single day. It's a months-long process. But this event is just a chance to remind people to reduce lighting from mid-August through about mid-November. So all right. Thank you all so much for listening. And I guess with that, maybe we can take some questions.
Thank you so much, Devin. Thank you so much, Tracy. Really great information. Let's get right to the questions. Okay, so I think you did mention this, Tracy, but just to recap, yellow lights help, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we recommend using yellow lights. Again, those bright white LED lights are more similar to the spectrum that we see in the sun. So when it's nighttime, we don't want that large of a spectrum. So we recommend using amber color or yellow lights. That's going to be better for us. It's going to be better for the nocturnal environment. Some folks use red lights. So studies are we're still looking into it as far as which nocturnal animals are more attracted to what color spectrum. But we found that amber, red, yellow attract less, basically. There are some conflicting animals that are more drawn to yellow than red, but in general, for the most benefit, we would recommend using the bug lights. So you can find those at Home Depot, Lowe's. They're those yellow bulbs. So that's an easy transition to use for your lights exteriorly. And again, inside your home too. So when it's, nighttime, you're getting ready to settle down, change out your light bulbs in your sitting rooms to those yellow, warmer color temperatures. It may actually help you get to sleep a little easier.
Awesome. Yeah, and that kind of dovetails into the next question, asking about indoor lighting. It obviously will impact us, but does indoor lighting have an impact on our critters outside as well?
Yes. So, like Devin said as well, shutting your curtains, shutting your blinds at night, using less light if you can on the inside of your home. I think there's a lot of information right now about blue light, which is our phones, which is our television screens. And again, that's so bad because it wakes you up. It makes those cells in your eyes turn on. So if you're looking to get more sleep, if you're looking to have those natural circadian rhythms that we all need, using warmer color temperatures in your home, and then shutting the blinds for the migratory birds, especially this time of year, and again, using light more responsibly at night.
Excellent. Thank you. Um, I think, Tracy, you mentioned that Clark County wrote an ordinance or there's a code there in place. We had a question just asking if that's something that could be shared. Um, I work with local governments and, sometimes it's a bit of a hurdle to get, the right verbiage in place to do something like that. So I wonder if there's anything you can share in that front from either Clark County or other communities that we might that might aid additional communities looking to do the same
Sure.
thing.
Yeah. I don't know if the easiest, just kind of, I can drop our link to our ordinance in the questions there, but also Dark Sky is working towards an easy, readable ordinance that we can pass out to other folks as well. So if you're interested in that, kind of stay tuned because we're working on that. I think that an ordinance at minimum should be everywhere. We should have easy to read and understand lighting ordinances across Ohio because that's what's going to really make big impact and change as far as for the migratory birds, as far as our human health. It starts with fully shielded lights. So if you can call or email your folks in local business and just tell them that that you would appreciate them to consider a lighting ordinance, I think that's a great start. But we're working on that. So TBD, I can definitely reach back out to you once we get an easy shareable ordinance for everyone. But yes, I will kind of check on that for you and see if I can get you more resources for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we have the means to share it to folks as well and get that help
Okay.
to get that out there. And then related, Julia, who posed that question, was asking if that Clark County code addresses soccer fields or recreational fields.
Sure. So the County ordinance, we didn't specify specific commercial versus residential. We basically said all lights should be shielded. We've recently built a school in Clark County, and when I talked to the architectures over there, they were compliant, so they were fully shielded, down directed. Dark Sky International also has a newly written ordinance specifically for sports complexes. So that is on Dark Sky International as well. So we can get you information about that too.
Excellent. Carolyn is asking if there is a source for reasonably priced window decals.
A good question. Yes, actually, so the company that I tend to recommend the most is Feather Friendly. And I can put that in the chat as well. Those guys are pretty reasonably priced. It depends on how large of windows you have to pick whichever product that they kind of have on their website. But they typically come in like a little strip of decals that has like an adhesion application that'll help kind of guide you, keep them straight, not have all these wonky dots around. But that's the cheapest one that you can get. It's about $20 a box, I think. And then if you have larger picture windows, though, using that little strip to put all those dots on does take a lot of time. So they have like a pro DIY type of application that you can purchase. They're a little bit more, but and that's speaking for the opaque dots. So they also sell Bird Divert, that company that I talked about for Rocket Arena that has those really kind of transparent dots that are UV reflecting. Those are also available on Feather Friendly's website, but I believe those come in just the larger strips at the moment. I'm not sure if they have just the like single ones that are a little bit cheaper. I will say that the Bird Divert is a little bit more expensive. And if you can stand looking at the dots, which I say, like, I have those on my windows at home. Yeah, I can see just fine through them. I'm also a photographer, so I can take pictures through the window if I wanted to. I get that question a lot, but they're great. I would go with the opaque solution just because it is a little bit more effective, and it is a little bit easier in all different types of windows as opposed to the Bird Divert where you want to make sure that you're not under that overhang or you're not, in a like shaded area where it might not be as effective. So long story short, Feather Friendly is a good company, but also there are plenty of other products as well on the American Bird Conservancy site. There's a lot of other companies that have similar kind of decals.
Thank you, Devin. That's helpful to have all those options. I
Yeah.
find my hardest sell for folks is I don't want to look through the dots. Like I
Yep,
get it,
yep.
you have your beautiful picture windows up so you can enjoy the outside, but
Yeah,
I agree. You really do get used to seeing them, but I understand. But it's
yeah.
nice to know that there's another option for folks that are even less visible to us.
Yeah, and
So
I will say even like the decals are one option, but the one that, people forget about a little bit are those Acopian bird savers. Those are those are nice. I mean, they look nice, I think, in my opinion. They kind of,
mhm.
sway with the wind a little bit. And you can keep those spaced further apart. It's also really cheap to make them yourself. I mean, you just go online and buy some paracord and you can tie some knots and hang them up. So you can make them removable if you want, take them away during migration season or outside of migration season, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I first saw those in place. I think it was Gorman Nature Center, maybe.
Okay.
But I hadn't seen them. I'm like, oh, what are
Yeah.
these? And talked to someone there, and they're like, yeah, we just made them ourselves. They were just, this Acopian bird saver. I'm like, that's really cool. And
Yeah.
they did look kind of neat and yeah, effective at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Denise has a good question. So if you're putting window treatments, on the windows, does that impact cleanliness of the windows and how you clean them? Do the dots get in the way? That's one thing that I haven't tried is to wash a window with those
It's too
dots
much.
on them.
No, that's a good question. I personally, I prefer to use the excuse, I don't need to wash my windows because that will help save the birds. And so therefore, it's just kind of one of those things. But you can actually wash your windows with these decals on. It doesn't affect their, the way that they stick or anything like that. They're made to be, semi-permanent or permanent kind of features. And so they purposefully designed them so that you can use regular products to clean those windows. So it does say it on their website, mostly referring to feather friendly. I'm sure each of the websites may have some different instructions just on like care and that kind of thing, but feather friendly, yeah, you can absolutely wash your windows regularly.
Awesome. Thanks. Mary's asking if the orientation of the window matters for bird strikes.
I'm thinking, is this more so angle? I'm guessing.
Maybe. Yeah,
Okay.
Mary, feel free to add a little bit more to that question. Or north, south, east, west. Yeah, I'm not quite sure
Yeah,
what
I
you're
mean,
touching
maybe
on there.
based on those two, unless Mary wants to pop in. So there was a study that looked at the angle of bird strikes, and I think it was, I believe, I'd have to look at this again, but I think it's if the window is angled and it can reduce some of that reflectivity, it may reduce window strikes a little bit, but it's really that reflection, that birds see in the windows that's going to cause the increase in window strikes. But as far as, north, south, east, west, not really finding much of a pattern with that. Can strike from all directions, unfortunately. So
Great, thank you. Just folks, just if you're not monitoring the chat on your own, take a peek. There's some great resources being shared by Tracy and some good comments from folks that have used these different window treatments. So make sure you're checking those out. Some good reports on feather friendly and cleanliness and the Acopian window savers as well. So, okay. Uh, Someone's asking, is there any effort to place more shielded lights in home improvement stores?
Um, we have found that there is a need for that. It's not great though. So I frequently monitor Home Depot and Lowe's to see how much fully shielded lights and dark sky compliant lighting that they have. And it's not overwhelming. Even though we have this ordinance in Clark County, you would think that they would have more fully shielded lights, but you still have to kind of pick and choose. There's still so many unshielded lights, and it's basically consumerism. What do the consumers want? I think that we as a society have decided that, again, lights make us safer, and we all need to turn on our lights at night. Um, Even local governments, they feel like this is what I did for my community. I put in all these lights. Look what I have done. And now we're realizing, whoa, 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 we need to pump the brakes. We need to actually kind of backpedal with that. This is brand new. Again, we've only had electric lights for about 100 years. So we are just now really starting to understand the consequences of that. So yes, you can find fully shielded, dark sky compliant lighting at Home Depot and Lowe's, but it's just minimal. It's just a little tiny section. Um, Dark Sky Ohio has a great Dark Sky Ohio. Dark Sky International has a great resource for that. So if you go to Dark Sky International, under the top tabs, it's find lighting. You can find lighting for your home, for industry, for commercial use. So Dark Sky International has a great tab for that, so you can actually go out and find dark sky compliant lighting, even street lights. So again, I think that it's out there. The We as a society just need to go out there and demand better lighting, buy these lights, and then then it'll follow. These lighting companies will make more lights once they realize this is what the population is demanding. Right now, there's just not. This is a brand new advocacy program. Not many people even have ever heard of light pollution, and why should they care? So that's what we're here for, right? That's what Dark Sky Ohio is here to do. This is what Devon's advocating for as well. This is what we hope that you all take away from this is look around in your own community, see where you can make a difference. And this is one of those things where we can, that one light can make a difference. Whether you change your lighting, whether you just turn it off, even for that small space in your backyard, you're creating an ecosystem that pollinators are going to want to come to, lightning bugs are going to want to come to. And I think that overall, one person can make a difference, which is why I am so passionate about this particular topic, because one person can make a difference. We can do this, we can make a change.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'm gonna try to post some of the links to some of these resources when I post the recording. So folks, you should have easy access to that. I'm also gonna add a little plug, a new document that just was shared with me. It's best management practices for artificial light with bats as well. So, and a lot of the
Very
same
cool.
things that we've been talking about today apply. So it's easy to kind of check your boxes to really help a lot of the critters out there. And nice comment from Nikki says, I stopped washing my three 18-foot tall by 10-foot wide windows 11 years ago. Stop the bird strikes and they don't look dirty. So win-win there for you, Nikki. Good job.
Absolutely.
Laura is asking, she's looking online at yellow light bulbs. She's jumping right in. There are LED and incandescent. Can you guys talk a little bit about how that
Um,
matters?
I don't specifically know right offhand what would be the better choice, I guess. And that is another issue too, is that sometimes you put in a bulb and you say, oh wow, that is way brighter than I thought it was going to be. Sometimes you can look at the lumens that when we look at light intensity, what do we actually need? So do you need 60 lumens? Can you get away with 20 lumens? We always advocate for using just the right amount that you need. So if it's just on your back porch and you need to just see down the steps, you don't need a really high wattage or high lumens for that. Incandescent may not last you as long as an LED. Sometimes the LEDs can be a little bit brighter. Again, you may just have to kind of do some research there and see what kind of lumens it puts out and see which one, may be better. Sometimes incandescent may be a little less bright than the LEDs. Again, sometimes it's just trial and error to figure out which one's going to be best for your need.
Yeah, and I will say I think LEDs might be a little bit more energy efficient, but with as far as the brightness goes, I think I don't on my back porch, I've got some LEDs in there as well, but I also have a dimmer on them so that I can set, the brightness of those lights. So that's another thing to keep in mind too is, what kind of fixture that you're putting that in. Do you have the opportunity to put a dimmer in, that kind of thing, just to decrease that amount of light that you're putting off?
I know on the bat side, the UV
Mm.
output matters as well. So if you can work that into your research, Laura and folks, and that really just depends on the light source. But if you can find out how much UV, less UV is going to be better on the bat side of things as well. So, okay. I think that gets us through all the questions. If I missed a question, folks, feel free to pop it into the chat at this time. And I'll kind of end with John Whittington left a suggestion for some books, and I'll put those in the chat as well, if anybody is interested. But thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Devin, so much. We appreciated this. Such really wonderful information, well presented, and gave us all some things to do at home as well. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording at this time, and Kathy's going to put that link in the chat for continuing education.